Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. Today's guest is Dr. Tony Iezzi, a clinical psychologist with over 35 years of experience helping people break free from trauma, stress, and the behavior that keeps them stuck. He's the co-author of Reenactment, break the behavioral pattern that keeps you stuck in trauma, stress, and everyday life. A powerful book that blends science, clinical insights, and real stories. If you've ever caught yourself repeating the same habits, choosing the same wrong situations, or reacting strongly to small moments and wondering, why am I like this? These conversations will give you answers. So please join me. Welcome, Dr. Yetsi.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, it's a pleasure to have you actually. So yeah, I want to start from the beginning, right? So for someone new to this topic, what exactly are reenactments?
Reenactments are a person's way in terms of reacting to certain situations, whether they be traumatic or non-traumatic. But essentially, it's a pattern of brain, body, and behavior response to a moment, to an event, to a situation.
So it's
So,
basically
so in a moment, you experience the moment, and let's say you're in a car accident, you break your leg. So this would be a traumatic kind of event. Your reaction to the pain, your reaction to being injured, your reaction to not being able to cope with things, to have your life turned upside down, you know, would be the obvious thing to respond to would be the pain, would be the loss of control in the event. That's to be expected. What's not recognized is that these events have themes that are associated with them, and they're the big problem. And this is what people don't pay attention to, aren't really dealing with. So there's a tendency to deal with the initial cause of the discomfort, but not the themes. And the themes are things like loss, betrayal, no control, uncertainty, entrapment. These themes are what trigger us. So in the accent, it's not the pain as much as, oh, I can't work. My quality of life is awful. I won't be able to look after my family. I feel helpless. My future is uncertain. It's these things that really agitate and wear people down. And the problem is when you get treatment, they'll treat your pain, but they're not going to treat the things that are actually triggering you, these themes. And what you have to appreciate, Joy, is these themes, people think an accident happened and it goes from there. No, people come into the accident with life experiences that make them sensitive to certain themes. And that's what contributes to a reaction in for example, a traumatic moment.
Mm. All right. So I feel like this also causes like repeating of unhealthy patterns, right? So why do you think people repeat unhealthy patterns even when they know better, basically?
Well, okay, so a lot of the patterns, old patterns, start in
Mm.
childhood and they go
Mm.
on for years. And so you become a teenager, you become a young adult, you become an older person, and you go, oh, this isn't working. I should do something different. Well, the problem is you've already been doing this for 15, 20 years. And then you get up one day and you think you're going to change this. It doesn't happen that easily. Those old habits are very strong. And a lot of times they remain because people are not aware. They don't know. They just react automatically without thought, which is one reason if you're going to change this, it has to start with awareness. You have to know this is wrong. You have to know I can't keep doing this in these relationships. I can't do this in these relationships that involve, a boss at work. It's going to put us into trouble. And so the idea is to learn to recognize the old habits. And what our book is about is creating new habits and maintaining the new habits. So, for example, this is a general sweeping stereotype. A lot of people, when they get run over by life, swallow it. They don't say anything. So the boss says something, they don't say anything. The partner does something that's mean, they don't say anything. Because they've learned it's better not to say anything. Because if you're going to say anything, you're going to draw some attention, you're going to get into more trouble. If you keep swallowing, this is going to wear you out. And so you have to be aware, I have to change this, which means in this case, to stop this, to break this, the change would be find your voice, say something. Hey, I don't like that when you do that. This makes me feel this way. Don't do this. So it's just sort of, and what happens is it's empowering to find your voice, to say what you need to say, and even if it doesn't change the other person, you're speaking up for you and you're validating you, and that's as good as anything, and if this keeps repeating, then you have to reevaluate your relationship with this person. All right. And in fact, you should know that when people try to create new habits, behave differently, the world doesn't want them to change. The world doesn't want them to change because they keep wanting to get the same thing from that person. So they get their needs met. And so if you become more independent, if you assert yourself, if you direct people in your wants and needs, they might feel threatened by that. All right. But either way, you have to do this because the person has to save themselves. The world isn't going to save them. If there's going to be a change, and if you're going to do things for yourself to get your needs met, you're going to have to own them and not rely on the world.
Wow. So basically, it is first of all acknowledging that there's something that needs to be fixed about you, acknowledging that fact, and then we proceed to trying to adopt new patterns and keeping up with those patterns, right? Then
Yes.
picking up. Wait, I'll speak up.
So
Okay.
it's the old language, no boundaries, boundaries. If you grew up in an environment where you didn't have boundaries, you suffer the price of that. If you want to have more control over your environment, you have to set up boundaries. And here's the hard part. You have to execute consequences to violations of those boundaries.
Mm.
So if someone talks to you in a certain tone, what's the consequence going to be? I don't like that tone. Please don't speak to me that way. You know, we're done as friends or we're done as, something else. But we can't, the worst thing would be to maintain the old habits, which is do what you've always done. You take it. And this is where a lot of people get into trouble, is they learn to take it. And why do they take it? Because they were children. What could they do? If you're 7, what are you going to say to a parent who's being mean? How much leeway do you have, to correct a parent? It doesn't work that way. Kids figure out what adults want and make these adjustments so they don't get into trouble. So a lot of the old patterns start early and they come from bad parenting or bad environments. Okay. And we could add, if you want to be more complete, there's also a genetics. You're born with some things. Okay. But no one is born feeling programmed, the world doesn't love me. No one's born that way. Right? People learn to feel that way, their experiences and how they're treated. And what happens is we carry that into adulthood. So it goes into our adult relationships. And now we don't have the best partners. We don't make the best choices, and there are consequences. And so by the time you're 40, you're 50, you're physically and psychologically burnt out, burdened by all these experiences. There's a price to pay for this sooner or later.
Mm. You know, while you were speaking, a lot was going through my head. I was like, how do I even start? Because I have so many questions going through my head right now. And
Yeah,
wow, first of all, wow. And could that be because a lot of people they suffer from, relationships where they keep dating, they repeatedly keep dating someone that has the same character traits. I don't know if you understand me.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
do you think this can like attribute to that? Could that be the reason why they keep attracting one certain kind of person? Maybe because they don't feel loved or something. I don't know.
Right. No, that's right. So if you're mistreated as a kid by your parents and there's not a whole lot you can do, you could grow up with the attitude that you have no power and that you tolerate mistreatment from other people when you're an adult. And this connection to a parent, I think what you're getting at is how we tend to find partners who are a bit like our parents.
Yes.
You can bet the house. People who have done that did not know that's what they were doing at the time. They just were not aware that that's what they were drawn to. That's what they expected. All right. If you were raised feeling like $1 million, why would you tolerate at 20 someone making you feel like nothing? You would have had the practice of owning your sense of self. And if you don't have that, and if you had your sense of self taken down every day. So, for example, I work the last 5 years in the bariatric surgical program in a hospital. So these people live with overweight and they go on to have surgery. Most of these people did not become overweight at 40. Most of these people started becoming overweight early.
Yeah.
And the words start early. Hey, fatty. Hey, what's wrong with you? And stupid things like you go on a date. If you weren't so heavy, you'd be really cute. Like this is what they hear. And this is horrible. This marks people, and it affects them, and the thing is, if they want to change, they have to be aware. Oh, this is what's going on right now. And then they have to be aware, oh, this comes from this, just like you said. Yeah, this comes from my dad treating me a certain way. Well, then you're going to go, oh, now that you know, I got to do things differently. You understand why you're the way
Yeah.
you are. Otherwise, if you don't know the why, it's a bit like a diet. There are a couple of hundred diets you can go on to lose weight. Now, one of them deals with why you eat.
Mm.
How are you going to change your behavior if you don't know why it needs to change?
Mm.
The why matters. So it's kind of like if you're sensitive to bullies and then you realize your first bully was dad, you know, then you start to see the bullies and you can start to think, let me create a new way to change how I deal with them. And it starts with not taking it, not allowing people to bully you. Again, same thing. Bullying doesn't start at 40. It starts early and continues into adulthood, and then they marry a bully. Here's the horror. You marry a bully,
Mm.
and then 5 years goes by, 10 years goes by, and you put up with 10 years of mistreatment,
Mm.
and then maybe you have a moment and you go, oh my, this is what I'm doing. And
Mm.
so reenactment therapy is about involving people and showing them how to change and why they need to change. And it has to do with creating a new sense of self, a new identity. Otherwise, you have the identity at 40 that you have been developing since you were 5.
Reenactment therapy. I feel like, this should be. wildly spread. Like the awareness should just be out there because most people are not even aware of this situation. And I'm thinking of multiple scenarios where I think now I am linking it to childhood experience. It's amazing how childhood experience can actually shape adults' decisions, right? And it's fascinating, getting to know about that now. It's really, really
No, because
fascinating.
as infants and young people, we are at the mercy of our caregivers.
Mm,
That's the fact. You
mm,
know, a 7-year-older doesn't have independence. A 7-year-older doesn't know what's right. You know, so they're at the mercy, and a lot of parents don't have it right. And a lot of bad parenting came
mm,
from their bad parents.
mm,
It just goes back and back and it gets passed on. And
mm,
so this is the problem, and but the thing that has to be understood, to be affected by this, you don't have to be abused. It doesn't have to be traumatic that way. It could be a parent who's never home, never available. And what
mm,
kind of partner do we pick later? An unavailable partner.
mm,
You
mm,
know, this is what you know. You don't know anything else, and you
mm,
think it's not a conscious decision, but it's what you're used to.
mm,
Which is one reason sometimes when people weren't used to being treated nice, find themselves a partner in the present, and this partner like thinks this person is the best thing ever, and they treat him really nice. That person doesn't know how to deal with that because they're just not used to that kind of treatment by someone else. And sometimes you'll hear about people use the word sabotage. They'll sabotage a relationship. They'll mess it up, not consciously, not on purpose, just simply they're not comfortable with being treated this way. So, um, yeah, at the beginning of things, you have to appreciate that this is where it comes from. And then later on, you can change that.
Wow. This has been really, really educative, actually. And thinking about it, I know we've talked about trauma and everything, but I need us to move forward, right? Someone who was trained a certain way, especially from childhood into adulthood, I think it's difficult to, just let go of that attitude you literally grew up with. So how would you now advise someone who is so engrossed in this? How do you advise them to move past it, the emotional aspects?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
How can
it
they grow
the
out of it?
problem is most people want a quick fix.
Mm,
There is no quick fix to these kind of issues or problems. You're going to try to make some changes, and then you're going to try to keep those changes for the rest of your life.
mm,
Reenactments happen every day to all of us, many times a day. We just don't know it. We don't know it. We don't know why we're taking a ride with a coworker to go to a meeting for the first time, and you're nervous for some reason in the car. Why? Because you're in a space, that you're not comfortable with, and based on previous experiences of being in a space, you develop a vulnerability and a sensitivity to this moment. Even though nothing is happening, you get triggered. And I think this is reenactments has been recognized before. So I want to clear that. All right, it's recognized. What's not as recognized, it's the themes, not just in traumas, but in everyday life that can trigger us. All right. So a boss talking to us with a certain tone, a partner who gives us a certain look, someone who bumps into you at the mall and then sees you and then gives you the head to foot look like you're below them, you know, and it's no big deal. You should just walk away. They're messed up. But no, you walk away and you go, what's wrong with them? Who do they think they are? And you get all defensive and you get all worked up and you think about it till the next day.
mm,
So this is this is what's kind of novel about this is an emphasis on identifying the themes. If the theme is shame and humiliation, then you have to change the pattern in a way that breaks the shame and humiliation. If the theme is abandonment, then you do something that makes you feel less abandoned. That's what the importance is of labeling the themes. Otherwise, much of what you're doing is just a general, non-specific, I'm trying to feel better. And so the first thing people have to do, and this is what's hard, they don't want to look at things. So when I see people weight loss, they want to talk about how to lose weight. What shocks them is, let's talk about why. What are the emotions? And then they go, oh, it's my anxiety. Okay. Are you anxious about what? You're anxious about a relationship that is awful? Are you anxious that you don't have any money and you're going to be homeless soon? Are you anxious because your marriage sucks? Like you have to treat those specific things if you want a person to overcome, their specific issues. Otherwise, it's a non-specific intervention and you're going to get a non-specific outcome and it won't hold. It will not sustain. You'll be good. So when you get 12 sessions of CBT for any problem, it'll work for 6 months, a year, but people go back to their old habits. It's really hard to maintain the new habits unless you understand the whys. You have to understand your programming, and then you can make the changes you need to make. Be the person you want to be, not the person you have always been. Too much?
I wouldn't say it's too much. It's just eye-opening, right? I'll use the word eye-opening. Thank you so much.
Just have me back if you want, if you want to hear more.
I would love to. I actually was going to say that now. Like, can we have another episode
Yeah,
where,
sure.
yeah, I
all we
have
did is just scratched. We just scratched is all we did.
wow. I have
Yeah.
so many questions for you, just time. And also, yeah, another episode is perfect, actually. And thank you so much for,
Sure.
helping understand the patterns behind our choices and how to break free from them. And yeah, finally, there's this
Yeah.
segment in my podcast. It's called the rapid fire segment, right?
Okay.
So what's, one word for healing?
Hope.
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 Okay. So do you prefer the morning routine or night reset?
I'm sorry?
Morning routine or night reset?
Well, what do I do?
Which do you prefer, the morning routine or the night reset?
Oh, I see. Oh, I like both. I like I like both. I like to start the day right and I like to end it right. So
Oh, right.
they're different things.
Okay, wow. Okay. So, what's the biggest mistake or the biggest mindset mistake young adults make today?
That adults make today,
Yeah.
that they think the world will take care of them, as
Hmm.
opposed to believing in themselves. They they listen to people too much. They need to listen to themselves more.
Oof, just have to say it. After this episode, I have a lot of thinking to do. Right? 'Cause I've just been exposed to so much right
No,
now.
but I think the interesting thing is this is exactly the audience, a young audience.
Young.
This is the time to make some changes,
Mm.
because if you do this for another 20 years, then it's even harder to break.
Mm.
The longer you are in your old pattern, the harder it is to break. So now is a good time, when as young people we're rich and wanting to try different things, to define
Mm.
ourselves, to be independent, to be self-sufficient, all those things. So this is a good time to look at this and
Mm.
save yourself the wear and tear of repeating the same mistakes. Yes.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Okay.
Yes. See, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so yeah, what's one book that changed your life?
Uh, it's a cliche, but probably Man's Search for Meaning by
Mm,
Viktor Frankl. So that's a classic, and it's a book by a psychiatrist who was in World War II camps, and he made observations. And basically, he's the first guy to talk about one of the first, he gets a lot of credit for, he's a guy who talked about you have to have meaning and purpose in life. If you don't have
mm,
meaning, and you don't have purpose, it doesn't matter how much money, it doesn't matter how much success, it doesn't matter how much of any of that, you're not going to be good. So you have to have a meaning and you have to have a purpose that is authentic to you, and that really is. So that book is a message on that.
okay. So thank you so much. This episode has been insightful. Although I have questions that I will transfer to our next episode, right? When
Okay.
I'll send my calendar so you can book a date that's suitable for you, actually. And yeah, where can listeners get to know more about you and what you do?
No, no, for sure. So if people want to know more about reenactments, the book, and a lot of information related to it is on our website, and the website label is Tony Iezzi IEZZI .com. All right, so TonyIezzi.com, and so you can scroll through that. The blog posts, there's stuff about the book. There's all kinds of stuff. It's a good start. It's a good start. But I think the book, we can talk about it, but the book provides so much more. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. I would actually be
Sure.
checking out the book. There's like an ebook version, right?
Yes, there is that as well. Yes.
Okay. I'll go for that one
Okay.
actually.
All
All right.
right. Good.
Yeah, thank you. And to my
Thank you.
audience, thanks for tuning into Conversations with Sekani. If this message sparked something in you, make sure to share to someone who you think might need this, and also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episode. Thank you, Doctor. Do have a
Okay.
wonderful day.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
And our email.